for joining me today. I am Dr. Courtney Doki, and today I am going to answer one of the questions that you have been asking. Is there a difference, or what is the difference between the symptoms of attention deficit hyperactivity disorder and generalized anxiety disorder? Because what we've often seen and what people have often asked me, doesn't anxiety cause problems with inattention and problems with focus on concentration? And the short answer to that is yes. However, there are marked difference both neurologically and behaviorally when it comes to the symptoms of generalized anxiety disorder and attention deficit hyperactivity disorder. For example, in ADHD, ADHD constitutes three areas. One, we can think of ADHD as inattention. What do we mean by inattention? Inattention is difficulty sustaining attention. Oftentimes, these individuals may make careless mistakes. They have difficulty organizing tasks, and they have a challenges being focused. They're easily distracted. So something move in the environment, something change in the environment. These individuals who struggle with symptoms of attention will move with the stimuli in the environment. The second aspect of ADHD has to do with hyperactivity, fidgeting, unable to stay in one's seat, or the inability to remain seated. That's for people who are in school, in meetings, and so forth. These individuals have excessive talking. They keep going and going, and also difficulty engaging in activities quietly. The third aspect of ADHD is impulsivity. And this is where people will be in conversation and they blurt out the answers. They speak over everybody else, where they're just impulsively giving the answers to questions or speaking over other people. They tend to be very interruptive. So you're speaking and you're in a dialogue with someone, and they're struggling with impulsivity that is associated with ADHD, and they will keep giving the answers rather than giving other people a chance to speak. They will interrupt the conversation of others, and they also have difficulty waiting their turns. So think of it so far. We have looked at specific symptoms that has to do with ADHD, that is inattention, hyperactivity, and impulsivity. So let's look at three areas of generalized anxiety disorder that is different from those associated with ADHD. So the first one is generalized anxiety disorder has to do with excessive worrying. There's a persistent and excessive worrying about various aspects of life. That could be work, social context, social interactions, worry about their health, worry about the future. There's constant and excessive worry that has to do with within generalized anxiety disorder. And excessive worry is not something associated with ADHD. Also, with the generalized anxiety disorder, there are physical symptoms, which includes things like restlessness and fatigue, difficulty concentrating due to constant worrying, where the mind is preoccupied worrying about something. And this constant worry, where the mind is either in the future or worrying about an event coming up, this consistent or this persistent worrying can cause inattention and concentration problem. But this inattention is different from the inattention and concentration problem associated with ADHD. Another aspect of generalized anxiety disorder that is not associated with ADHD is that individuals with generalized anxiety disorder tend to have avoidance behavior. In other words, the tendency, individuals with generalized anxiety disorder tend to avoid situations that may trigger the anxiety or provoke the anxiety. Individuals with ADHD will not avoid certain things unless they will avoid it in the context of, is it boring? It doesn't give a dopamine rush. There's no pleasure. There's nothing to drive them. There's no motivation to drive that person to do that activity. So this is where sometimes it becomes a tricky, where people may think, oh, this person is avoiding, and that avoidance may be associated with ADHD. No, the avoidance with anxiety has to do with fear. I don't want to approach that thing because this might happen. I don't want to do this because I'm scared. There is a fear factor associated with the reinforcement of the avoidant behavior that is associated with generalized anxiety disorder. However, avoidance, as it relates to ADHD, has to do with the fact that the thing is not causing a motivation. There is no energy towards the thing. The thing doesn't bring any pleasure, any dopamine rush, and that's a marked difference between avoidance associated with anxiety and not doing certain tasks. For individuals who struggle with ADHD, may not do certain tasks, but the reason for doing that task is because there's nothing in the task to motivate the person. There is no drive. There's nothing about the task that brings any pleasure, any dopamine release. And that's an important thing for individuals with ADHD. So they're not avoiding because of fear, they're avoiding because it brings no pleasure. And these are some ways we can start to look at the distinction between anxiety and ADHD. Hopefully, this video was helpful for you. Please subscribe, ask your questions. The more you subscribe and the more you ask questions, is the more we can do these videos to help individuals to navigate their journey with ADHD. Thank you so much. Looking forward to seeing you again. Bye bye for now.